Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Mariana Gatto. I'm the Executive Director and co-founder of the Italian American Museum of Los Angeles. A special thanks to the Los Angeles Department of Arts and Culture for making this event possible. Our guest today, Joe LoPiccolo, is a guitarist and composer whose work is influenced by classical, jazz, and world music styles. Joe is a graduate of the California Institute of the Arts, who received his BFA in jazz guitar and his MFA in guitar performance. In addition to teaching at Mount San Antonio College and the College of the Canyons, Joe has been honored by Guitar Player magazine and has authored 2 texts, Guitar Mosaic and Improvisation for Guitarists. Welcome, Joe. How's it going?
Good, good. Thank you for having me.
How are you faring during, let's see, a full year into the pandemic?
I'm seeing the end in sight, so very, very hopeful. Yeah,
Yes,
and
like
trying to
many.
look on the bright side of some things that I learned during it. So doing well. Yeah, thank you.
Good, good, good. I'm glad to hear that. Well, we're really excited that we're able to do this concert. We're used to working together when you're performing on stage with us at Taste of Italy and other events. But given that such gatherings are not a possibility, we are just very excited to be presenting this program today that's a mixture of music and history. So, your family, like many Italian Americans in Los Angeles, originally settled in Lincoln Heights. Is that right?
Yes, yeah, yeah. And I think we have a slide of Avenue 20 and South Avenue 20 and Broadway. Yeah.
Okay, and so for people who may not be familiar with where Lincoln Heights is, Lincoln Heights is actually one of Los Angeles's oldest neighborhoods, located just northeast of downtown Los Angeles, and it was also once one of the largest Italian American enclaves in Southern California. So before we get into the music, I'd like to kind of chat a little bit about Lincoln Heights. So as early Anglo residents of Lincoln Heights moved out, Italian Americans moved in. This was, around the early 1900s. They were attracted to the neighborhood's idyllic tree-lined streets and its spacious Victorian homes, which could accommodate, some of our larger Italian American families. Interestingly enough, at its peak, Lincoln Heights boasted over 20,000 Italian American residents and scores of iconic Italian American businesses. I think if you wander through the neighborhood today, you'll of course run into the San Antonio Winery, and which is a landmark, over 100 years old now, and the Lanza Brothers Market, right there on across from the old brewery. They're also nearing their 100th anniversary. So these 2 places are some of the only reminders of when Lincoln Heights was one of Los Angeles' little Italies. And I think we have an image of your family at their house.
Yeah, and so that's the far right is my dad, and
Mm-hmm.
my grandma. Far left is my aunt, and then
Mm,
in the far back on the left is my great grandfather, and then
mm.
my grandfather was taking the photo. Yeah,
What a great shot. Any idea what they're eating for dinner?
I've never zoomed in. My aunt is here. I doubt if she remembers, but I'll
It looks
ask.
like pasta of some kind.
I'm gonna see her on Sunday, so I'll ask her on Sunday.
So were there any stories about, obviously this photo was taken before your time, but were there any stories about Lincoln Heights that were passed down to you?
Yeah, yeah. There were a number of them, and to me, like they're really important because my great grandfather, who you see up there in the upper left,
Hmm.
and my grandfather, both passed um, before I was born. So I really that kind of I would have loved to have had that connection. So the stories are important to me. One was that this my great grandfather that you see here on the upper left,
Hmm.
my aunt would tell me that the community back then was very open. People would leave their front doors open, and the kids were just in and out of all the houses, and everyone knew each other. and that my great grandfather, when he walked down, people called him Don LoPiccolo. Yeah, and no one, my aunt said no one really knew what he ever did for work, but they all called him Don. So there may be another story there. But another one that I love is Grand Central Market, and it's been interesting seeing the resurgence of that. But my aunt told me they used to shop there, and so when I read Ask the Dust, the Fante novel, and he
Mhm.
talked about going and buying oranges, I was just like, this is so cool. And so to me, it has a special resonance when I walk through there now. That to think about, my great grandfather, my family walking through there, however many years ago, that 80 years ago or something like
Mhm.
that. So those are just a couple of the stories that I love. Yeah.
And they first settled in Lincoln Heights in the early 20s, yes?
I assume so. This lodge, I think this 26, I think 25, 26. And this was, we actually looked, there's the photographer's signature somewhere, and it was a Lincoln Heights place. And you said you researched this was a Lincoln Heights lodge. So yeah, I assume that they came out here in the early 20s. I know a bit more about when they actually arrived in New York and so forth, because I had to actually requisition all these papers to get my Italian citizenship. But I'm not sure when the actual move from New York to LA was. But I assume that you're right, in the 20s. Yeah.
Mm, mm. And like many Italian enclaves, the post-World War II years really marked a turning point for Lincoln Heights. Of course, the GI Bill enabled Italian American families and many families, of course, to purchase homes in more desirable neighborhoods. But the path chosen for the construction of the Interstate 5 also really led to the disbursement of Italian Americans from Lincoln Heights. The 5 essentially divided the enclave in half. And I think we have an image of kind of something that's near and dear to your heart. Do we? I think we have an image of that, no?
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, so this I was actually, I haven't I was went down to try and find where the old house was, based on the address. And so this was my best estimation going by the number on the opposite side of the street of where the house would have been. And it's pretty prosaic, with this poetic memory I have of people strolling down the street and popping into each other's house, speaking Italian, and
Mm.
this is what's left along that one side there. And so um, this sounds like that it was preconceived, but it's not. That's why I'm so grateful for what you're doing with the museum. Honestly, is because we don't have much of a community left here in Los Angeles. So I'm really glad that you're doing that.
Well, thank you. And we appreciate that. The irony is that Los Angeles has the nation's 5th largest Italian population. And, as you said, thankfully, we have sites where the Italian community can still gather. Of course, the museum, St. Peter's Italian Church, the Istituto in Westwood. And we of course still have our share of events. There's lots of the feasts that take place at St. Peter's and elsewhere, and of course Taste of Italy, which we haven't seen now for a couple of years because of the pandemic. But is it fair to say that growing up as you came of age here, there was kind of less of a mirror as an Italian American than say, other places, other cities where it's easier to kind of still find that community, or maybe there still is, the Italian neighborhood. How did your longing for that sense of tribe or neighborhood kind of influence who you became as a musician?
Okay, should I talk about the actual project itself and how it was tied in?
Sure, yeah, if you'd like to start telling us about the Italian project, or just a little bit about how kind of, you
Okay.
know, yeah.
Sure. They're related. I can do one and then the other. But yeah, growing up, it was something that I didn't think much of. I just, it was kind of implicit. My dad used to call me Giuseppe, sometimes, and my name is formerly Joseph. And I grew up with a lot of the snacks that when I meet people, that other Italian Americans, these are things that we grew up with. Whether it's torroni or whether it's the little anisette cookies or the biscotti or just things like that. But yeah, there wasn't really, didn't have nothing akin to what you would hear about Lincoln Heights, and then also nothing akin to what I see in Los Angeles as far as different pockets of ethnicity and the community.
Mhm, mhm.
So it was something I was very proud of, but I didn't really, I didn't think much of it, and
Mhm.
I just kind of accepted it that that's who I was at that point. I just felt like I was Italian, and it wasn't really till I moved out here that I saw the contrast between these other communities in Los Angeles. And also, of course, as you said, Boston. I went to Berkeley School of Music for a little while, and we used to go get cappuccino at the North End, at like 1
Love
a.m.
that.
I know the real Italians will be aghast that they were having cappuccino that late, but like, it was a real resource for us. You could go get, a canolo and a cafe at like 1 a.m., and be around.
Mhm,
Or like
mhm.
even in San Francisco, when you walk around and you just see the
North Beach, yeah.
flag on the light post, it just feels
Right.
cool. Yeah, it just
Like
feels
a sense
cool.
of belonging,
Yeah, or just a tether to,
Yes.
both the Italian American community here, and then also thinking back about the Italian community in Italy
Mhm.
and what those people went through before they came here. Yeah, so
So now this kind of led you to the project that you're going to be performing today. Is that a fair statement?
yeah, yeah. The project today, coming, my family's from here, but I didn't move out here full time to live here until I came out here to go to Cal Arts. But when I did come out here, and then as I started to really immerse myself deeply, and because coming out here my whole life, it was just mainly coming out for Christmas or summer, and staying. And at that point, my family was in the West Valley, like
Mhm,
Calabasas, Topanga. We had my grandma was in Van Nuys, but I hadn't really explored the whole city and really understood what Los Angeles is about. And then living here as an adult and seeing, all the pockets of ethnicity, and one of the people I mentioned, I wouldn't say he's an influence, but an inspiration was Jonathan Gold, and just the way that
mhm, mhm,
really loved the diversity of this city, and these pockets of ethnicity where you could immerse yourself in the food. And I seeing all that, I was like, man, I wish that I had that with my Italian heritage, because I was really learning Spanish. I was working in ItaLiAn at Plaza de la Raza. I was studying a lot of Spanish styles, and the musicians I play with here, a lot of Latin styles. It can be Armenian music, it can be some
mhm,
Spanish music. I studied, Eastern European music and Indian music and African music at Cal Arts, but I never envisioned that there was something like that to connect to here. And then
mhm, mhm,
later in life, when I met some people from the Institute at an Italian film festival in San Diego, I thought, yeah, I could go deeper with this, and so what happened with this project and the slide that we have up now, if I'll just segue should I just segue into that?
yes.
Um, the reason why, part of why I didn't really get deep into Italian music at first was it didn't grab me on as a guitarist the way that some other world music styles do. Like if you listen to Brazilian guitar music, it's just incredible, or African guitar music, or if you go to India, the sitar, just all over. We don't really have that in Italy. We have some traditional folk music from the South, like we saw, with the tarantella and things like that. But it's just not known for this harmonic, which means the chords, the complexity that you find in some other cultures on the guitar. Spain, or American jazz music. So I kind of shied away from it when I started to hear the traditional stuff. It's fairly simple, just looking at the chords. I'm not saying it's not beautiful, and also, apart from that, I felt like so many versions have been done verbatim of these songs, verbatim
Mhm,
and
mhm, mhm,
adaptations. As we go through the set today, you'll see. So I felt like what I could do that would feel authentic to me, and kind of really be reflective of my experience in Los Angeles, both as far as reconnecting with my own heritage and viewing being Italian American as being an immigrant. We're so assimilated now because we've been here for so long. We're not really thought of as an ethnic group. We're not discriminated against anymore. In fact, it's really cool to be Italian.
arguably.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, yeah.
Arguably.
Yeah. But
Some people would disagree with that, but sorry to interrupt.
yeah. So, yeah. So for me, it was a way for me to not. Then I felt like I could connect with both. I could bring my global experience that I've had. Not certainly not an expert in any of these genres, but what I've learned from living and working in LA as a professional musician, studying Brazilian music, studying flamenco, lightly studying some Indian music, lightly studying some Eastern European music, lightly studying some Cuban and some Latin American music, and then take these songs and tweak them so that it felt authentic to me. It didn't feel like some just another cover O Sole Mio or Torna Sorrento or something that you've heard 1,000 times. And it's incredibly beautiful when we hear Bocelli or when we hear, bless you, when we hear people do these songs, but I want to do my own thing. So what the project is basically taking these songs, and the reason why I have the L and the A large in there is that I'm putting this imprint of
Mhm.
my musical background here in Los Angeles and all those styles that I've studied and all those great musicians I've worked with. And, when I was trying to give this project legs at first, I wanted to hire just Italian players, like people that live here, musicians from Italy. And I found they couldn't play these arrangements as well as the people from Los Angeles that were
Mhm.
exposed to these global styles. So to me,
Mhm.
it's the perfect marriage, and it's a really nice way for me to connect, but also to hopefully bring something new or a little bit of a different perspective to these songs that we've heard so many times.
Now, are we ready to get to the music, or did you want to? Okay.
Briefly show you on this on the arranging page just quickly. So, some of you that may love these songs, these arrangements I do, they're not necessarily more beautiful or equally beautiful, but they're
Mhm.
different. And so some of the things I'm changing are adding new chords, which would be harmonization, extending or contracting the form, changing the feel or the time signature, changing the dramatic moments of a song, the dynamics, the tone, the way that we phrase it, the speed, taking something that's normally slow, playing it fast, or vice versa. And then, of course, setting it to different instruments. I'm doing it all on guitar. And then as an improviser, I improvise a lot on these.
Mhm.
So anyway, those are just some of the basic ways that I transmute these songs into my own kind of thing. But now I'm ready. Yeah.
So now the first song you're going to be playing comes from the tradition of canzone napoletana, or a Neapolitan song. And I know you prepared these like kind of wonderful slides for us that will kind of serve as the intro for each song you're going to be performing today.
Yeah, just very briefly, just give a little quick thing. So
Awesome.
yeah, as I was kind of researching a lot of, this repertoire, I discovered, just how important the Neapolitan song was. And
Mhm.
I think in the broader perspective too, I mean, and again, feel free to correct me at any time.
I'm not an expert by any means on canzone
No,
napoletana.
heritage and of the Italian American, the immigration here, you absolutely are. But what I found was that, we have, I guess, because of when this immigration was happening, it was mainly from the South, from the less affluent areas of Italy.
75%.
Okay. And so the Neapolitan song in particular, for some reason, a lot of these songs that Italian Americans know are Neapolitan. So
Mhm.
interesting. So there were usually, some are very often still sung in Neapolitan,
Yeah.
Funicula, O Sole Mio. Santa Lucia was one of the very first ones translated into actual Italian because it was kind
Mm.
of happening contemporaneously with the unification of Italy. So it was kind of done in that spirit. But a lot of these are still actually in Italian. When you see the lyrics, you can see different vowel sounds, different. You can see that the dialect looks different in some of these when we get there. Yeah. And anyway, so some of the theory was, that obviously more of the immigrants were coming from the South, but also Enrico Caruso was one as well. He was just so prolific. And so he was kind of the ambassador of this song at the time. And so anyway, so the Neapolitan song, that's one thing I just wanted to mention. And we can go to the next slide now. And so this is O Sole Mio, and there's some interesting stories I found out about this, about the how it was written, and a copyright battle that went on for like 100 years, and how incredibly famous it is. And despite that, the lyricist and the composer of the music both died in relative poverty, despite having one of the most
Yeah.
popular songs ever. It was even played at one of the Olympics because the band couldn't find the Italian national anthem, so they just played O Sole Mio. That's how synonymous it is. And then of course we have American versions of it. And then if we want to turn to the lyrics, which is the next slide. So you can see, if any of you know Italian visually, there's some words here, particularly the U's, which usually we find in Italy in dialect, in
Mhm.
dialect, and then in Sardinian last names have a lot of different, instead of ending in the O's and things like the E's that we have at the end in this. So you can see that's in dialect.
And
And
of
a
course,
lot.
J, which doesn't exist in the Tuscan Italian.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's a different alphabet. A lot of people don't know that they're missing a couple things like Y and W and things like that. But the a lot of these songs are, not surprisingly, this is a stereotype, but hey, we're Mediterranean, and a lot of these are about love.
Mhm.
So
And
uh,
sunshine.
and so the sun is an analogy for the beauty of her face,
Hmm.
shining upon it. And so when I did a reharmonization of this, because the original version is just maybe, like literally like four chords. Okay, and what you're going to be hearing when I play this is a samba, bossa nova, moving between those two styles.
Mhm.
And is that richness? You'll hear just the richness of the chords from the Brazilian music and from my arrangement of that. And prior to that, we'll just play a quick clip of the Maestro, and very short. And again, it's just so incredibly beautiful to hear him. So again, I wasn't shooting to be commensurate in beauty. When you hear the simplicity with a master like him, it's just incredible.
Alrighty, let's hear the clip. And I don't think we have volume on the clip. Well, why don't we skip to you, and we can always come back to the Maestro. That was so lovely.
Thank you.
Absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you. So next, whenever you're ready, we can move to the next one if you want.
I think we're ready. There's just a couple minutes of lag in the share screen. So where are we going next?
Next, we're going down from Naples, down the Amalfi Coast to another, what would be considered a classic Neapolitan song. The Sorrento, the town, we think of it as being, one thing it's famous for is the lemons. We think of limoncello coming from there. And this song was interesting. It was purported to have been written for a visit by the Prime Minister of Italy, but it was actually composed earlier. But they said, hey, let's just flatter him and tell him that we wrote this for you. And so
Very Italian.
Exactly. And there's a, it's become synonymous. There's a statue of De Curtis there in the town. And I look at all of these, American English versions of it, Frank Sinatra, Elvis, Dean Martin, Jerry Valley, Enrico, and then we had some, of course, some of the famous tenors that have done it. And then if you want to flip, we can take a quick look at the lyrics and so forth again. And again, just another kind of a love song and just talking about someone coming, a woman that has left a man and come back and bring me back to life and Torn to Sorrento. I always thought it was, some of these things I think also become synonymous with the city. I always thought it was kind of longing for the city, but no, it's longing for a woman. So a better story probably.
Maybe the woman's a metaphor for the city, or the city's a metaphor for a woman. Could be either way, right?
Exactly. And so what I do with this one, rather than Brazil, is some of the kind of Latin styles that I've learned just through my friends and doing gigs here, and like a cha-cha. That kind of a style. So I'll be kind of mixing between different Latin styles on this one. So this is Torno Sorrento. I don't know if you want to show the clip or just have me go straight into it again. It's up to you. If there's
Let's
still.
see if we can get the volume on that clip. Okay. I think we're having an issue interfacing the.
No problem. That's a lot of pressure to supplant Pavarotti, but I'll do my best.
Let's see if we can get the volume on this clip. Yeah, I think we're having an issue interfacing Zoom with the
Facebook. No problem.
All righty. Well, let's go to the real deal.
Okay, Torna Sorrento.
Again, how fantastic. So what is the intro before
Uh,
that you incorporate there?
yeah, I remember the gig that I was on. I mean, it was probably like 20 years ago or something, and it was someone played a line kind of similar to that.
Mhm, mhm. I can't I can't place my finger on it.
A classic. It's not a particular song in particular. It's just like a common vamp that you might hear in like a mambo or a cha-cha in Latin
Yeah,
music.
yeah.
A lot of things that are or yajira, wajira.
There you go. There you go. I was thinking back to Cuba.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly that kind of thing.
Well, I neglected to mention this at the beginning of the program, that we encourage viewers to submit their questions for you, because we'll be doing a question and answer period at the end of the program. And they can do that just by typing, submitting the question in the comment box of the live feed. So let's see now, where are you taking us next?
So now we're moving over to opera arias.
Mm,
Should be a slide introducing the aria.
mm,
So this is where there is an incredible richness in the Italian music that I wasn't finding in kind of the folkloric or popular music, but of course, an incredible tradition of classical music and virtuosos and just, incredible in Italy. So arias are the featured solos within an opera, right? And
mhm,
I did a little bit of research. Is just from Latin. 14th century is the first kind of occurrence that we have of this, and of course, many people know just the arias and not the entire opera, or that's considered the centerpiece, or that's if you read a review of an opera after, that's where these tenors or these sopranos, that's what the New York Times critic is going to be out there waiting to watch, to see.
mhm,
That's the important, that's the Super Bowl for them.
mhm,
And so it's interesting how some of these have worked their way into our culture. This one that I'm doing is called Mio Babino Caro.
mm.
And, a lot of, if you want to switch to the next slide, we can. A lot of people mistakenly feel that it's bambino, like child, but it's
Yeah,
not. It's
yeah, yeah. Babino.
yeah, which is father, like
Yeah, diminutive of father.
yeah. So this is from Johnny Skiki, which I have never seen in its entirety. I have to admit, or I guess I didn't
Mm,
want to, but I just admitted I'd like to. But of course, I've seen. I was watching on Netflix just the other day. I think the Umbrella Academy, or I can't remember what series it was. It was used. This is used in so many contexts, but I try to not let that take away from the beauty. It's just a masterpiece.
mm,
It's a beautiful song. But I totally changed this one. I changed all those things. So I enjoy playing this one, and this one I would say, rather than coming from Cuba or coming from Brazil, it's really kind of my jazz influence.
mm,
So I may use some of those rhythms that I've learned from Latin music from South America and Latin America, but mainly the you'll hear I've tweaked it out quite a bit. I've played it for some people, and they mentioned Pat Metheny, which I was very flattered by the arrangement. So Puccini, is definitely considered the greatest composer of Italian opera after Verdi. So some of the other ones that you may know that are super famous: La Boheme, Tosca, Madame Butterfly, Turandot. So this is Mio Babino Caro, and should I assume we still don't have the oh, I'm sorry. So yeah, so here's the lyrics of what it's talking about. And I think Porto Rosso. I think this was. Oh no. Okay, so this is Firenze. Okay, Ponte Vecchio and the Arno. So there, we've moved away from Neapolitan, and the
mm.
opera seems to be set
We're
in
going a little bit further north.
yeah, it seems to be set in Florence. So I'm ready whenever you are.
right, lovely. You know, the O mio babino caro is also often described as kind of ethereal, and I think the way you rearranged it makes it like, you know, that, you know, and mesmerizing. It's a very I found myself kind of just really getting lost in it. It's really beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, yeah.
So where are we going now? Tell us, tell us.
Okay. I think we have a slide. Let's see. But this one this is interesting. This is what's been kind of cool about reconnecting with this is sometimes I'm reconnecting with things that I've heard a bunch of times and seeing them in a new way, bringing something in. Also, yeah, we should have mentioned it. I'm sorry, before the last one and before this one that both of these are Verdi, and that
Mm,
my Italian American joke that I have about this is it's Joe Green, right?
exactly, exactly. You stole the joke.
Okay.
You know, that's funny that you should say that. My father used to tell that same joke that, you know, he was when he was studying Italian in college. You know, they didn't. There was no like guidance, like, well, don't, you know, don't translate
Right.
proper nouns.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think they were given an assignment to translate, and then he then came back with Joe Green.
Exactly.
How everything sounds so much different in Italian, no?
Yep. So anyway, so here, you know, this is probably, you know, the preeminent opera composer from Italy. And I found doing a little research, it was interesting that, you know, he also was correlated a little bit with the Risorgimento, which was the unification of
Mhm,
Italy, which, you know, I
mhm,
mentioned earlier is why they translated, partially why they translated Santa Lucia into Italian. This is something that just for me is kind of funny that I love is that they celebrate that official day, which is not a big holiday in Italy. None of my Italian friends know this, but I love it because it's celebrated on my birthday.
mm,
So, which was it's kind of a nice point for me. And of course, you know, a million, you know, operas by him. And then this is the Anvil Chorus, and
mhm,
people will recognize it. In Italian, it's known as the Coro di Zingari instead of
mhm,
the Gypsy Chorus, right? Here we call it the Anvil Chorus. And you can see it's just kind of talking about the you know the nobleness of work and you know kind of the glory of working in the sun and coming home to you know dinner and the ones you love. Now what I did with this, what I was talking about, kind of finding a way that I could fit something that I had already studied onto this one is my straightest, most American arrangement in that I'm playing this hardcore jazz. And
mm,
what's interesting is when I think of jazz, I really aspire to a lot of very modern players, but someone that I really loved is Joe Pass, and whose real name was Joe Passalacqua. You know, so
mm,
he's he's passed away, but Joe Pass is a just you know incredible, was an incredible, amazing jazz guitarist. And I found it, you know, so for me, I think of him when I play this, even though I don't know if he ever recorded a version of this. I don't know how
mhm.
connected to his Italian heritage he was. But and I kind of wish he didn't change his name. But anyway, but Joe Pass is Joe Passalacqua, and so this is kind of my homage to Joe Pass and just my arrangement of the famous song. So ideally, I'd be playing this on the electric guitar, but I'll do the best I can on the classical to bring out the sound that I was going for this. So this is the Anvil chorus from Il Trovatore.
Mm. Fantastic. Yeah, that's.
Thank you. That's the most jazzy one. I'd be curious to know.
Do you find that people, I'm sorry to interrupt, do you find that people, do they ever approach you when you're playing these and say like, I know that song, or that's or do they recognize it and kind of comment on your rearranging, combination of both?
Yeah, it depends. This one is one that many people know. Where do I know that from? They don't. No one ever comes up and like, oh, that's Il Trovatore. But when I play some of the more famous movie themes, like the Morricone and things, people recognize those right away. But a lot of these more opera ones, they're in our subconscious, but maybe they don't really know.
Mhm.
Where they're from. So yeah, absolutely, you're right.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Now tell us where we're going after.
yeah.
Are we going further north?
This one, if we can see the lyrics.
We're getting there. In these clips, I think there's too much of a delay.
No
So
worries.
I apologize for that, but
No problem. Yeah. So this is from Rigoletto. I don't know where this one is set, but this is another Verdi opera, and we've heard this one a lot as well, whether it's in
yes.
a commercial, or just a ton of things. This one's very famous, and I found it was interesting reading about this. I guess they kind of knew that they had a hit on their hands because as they were rehearsing, if you can go back to the previous slide for a second, please. They rehearsed in great secrecy because they didn't want this to get out because they just knew that it was going to become really great, and then became popular among the Venetian gondoliers. So now we can go to the lyrics if you want. And so Donna è mobile, and it's just talking about, you can see there. What the lyrics are. And this one I changed to be reflective. I would say if I had to pick an influence, when I went to Cal Arts, I studied with a guitarist from the former Yugoslavia, so the Macedonian, Serbian, Croatian music. And one of the things that's very common there is that the music is not in a duple meter. It's not in 4/4, something that, so this, I switched it to 5/4 if there's any musicians out there. And again, I added a bunch of chords and some weird improvisation, and that's Italian project stamp on it. So this is La Donna è mobile. Let me just check my tuning.
I haven't, this is the first time I'm hearing your renditions of many of these songs. I know that you performed this or portion of it once at Taste of Italy for us, but I'm never able to actually listen to the music, So it's so nice to be treated to this performance. And I think after this, we're going back to Naples. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep. So this is one that we all know. Let's see. Oh, that was Don Mobile. And then the next one, let's
And
see.
that was a very young Pavarotti who I wish
We
I
can.
wish that clip had worked out.
Yeah, we could at least see him. But so this is Santa Lucia. And as I said, this was doing my research for this. It was fascinating to see that part of why it was kind of one of the first Neapolitan songs translated into Italian was part of that Risorgimento and the establishment of Italy as a unified country as opposed to these separate city-states. And so it's the first Neapolitan song to be given Italian lyrics. And if we take a look at the Naples, I mean, at the lyrics, it's just kind of talking about, how beautiful it is out at the Santa Lucia. I guess it's a quartiere or a neighborhood off of Naples. So this is Santa Lucia. And I think it was funny, the video that I had, if we haven't had it, it was a classic kind of Warner Brothers cartoon. So this one also is one that has come into our American culture, Italian American culture. This is a really popular.
We can try, if you want to try the clip, we can try it. But
you guys have worked it out, but yeah, it's just
okay.
I thought it was funny when I found that one. It was it's interesting that this clip, even if you play it without sound for a second, I can talk over it.
Yeah.
These Neapolitan songs became so popular in Naples that apparently at one point the mayor of Naples asked the gondoliers to stop singing all these Neapolitan songs because they want Venetian songs. So anyway, a funny Tom and Jerry little clip.
And kind of another interesting Italian connection. Tom and Jerry, obviously Hanna-Barbera, but I noticed that the director of this cartoon was a gentleman by the name of Michael Maltese, who was one of the people who was featured in our Italian Americans in Animation exhibition. And I just thought that was kind of neat. But anyway, too bad we don't have sound because this was a great clip, as all of them were. But you're also fantastic. So let's tell us what you got.
Yeah, so Santa Lucia. So this one, I'm kind of doing, if I had to think of a feel, kind of an Afro pop, a little bit of up samba. I used to play this with a Mexican percussionist who actually put this amazing Persian beat underneath it, which I love.
That's Los Angeles for you, right?
Exactly, yeah. Some people, I have played this one for some people, and the original is so angelic and beautiful, and I didn't do that with this one. So, I had a couple comments where it was like, but I like what I did with it. I did my own thing with it, and I changed it, and there's a million other versions of the original. So this is my take on Santa Lucia.
Just fantastic. Yeah, unlike any Santa Lucia I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Now, a couple months ago, we did a program featuring the inimitable Alessandra Belloni, who was just amazing percussionist and ethnomusicologist, dancer, lyricist. She, of course, has spent decades studying the tarantella and some of the indigenous musics, dances and forms of music from Southern Italy. Now, tell us a little bit about where we're going next. Is it Puglia, the heel of Italy's boot?
Yeah, well, this one actually, so this song, and I picked one that I haven't really gone deep into Tarantella myself. I've seen Alessandra here in LA at the Remo Factory. You know, she's
Mhm.
an artist for them, and I've listened to some, but I've never really played any prior to actually, knowing we had this program. I decided maybe I should learn one.
Hmm.
Um, and it's been kind of cool. I might go deeper into it. There's an Italian American musician named Joe LaBarbera who does like a workshop in Sicily sometimes, you know. But I did also know a little bit about this from a report I did when I was taking Italian at Pasadena City College, and it was fascinating that it is of course from Puglia we have pizzica, from Sicily we have the tarantella, and then apparently there's a Neapolitan version because the one I'm going to play is called tarantella neapolitano. But
Hmm.
what's interesting is and maybe Alessandra spoke about this, but it was used as this ritualistic dance to cure the victim from the bite of a venomous spider, you know, which is something similar to the tarantella. And I also read some theories that this was kind of one in a kind of a patriarchal society, and particularly going way back when, that it was, you know, women really had to keep the bella figura. It was a very kind of constrained society. And this was one of the moments where they could freely express themselves and kind of go crazy writhing on the ground. So it's interesting how much of it was, thought of being an actual cure and how much was this kind of cultural ritual that they knew. And so, anyway, that's the origin of the tarantella, and we do think of it from Puglia, you know, from Salento. There's, you know, very famous, you know, Lecce. There's a pizzica festival every year, or Taranta, Noce di Taranta, and then in Sicily, of course. And I didn't know that it extended as far up, but into Naples. But anyway, so yeah, I guess it does go all through there. And then the couple of videos that I had, it's also a dance, you know, so usually it's very often played with harmonica or tambourine or the frame drum, even the jaw harp. Guitar, not so often, you know, mandolin can be done with guitar. But again, this also has become synonymous. We've seen this in so many different commercials, so many ads. I saw it in an episode of Portlandia. There's an episode of The Simpsons. It's just used. It's ubiquitous, this particular tarantella. So what I'm doing with this one, and again, I want to say this is the premiere of me doing it. So I learned it for this, and it's kind of fast. So hopefully it'll go well. But what I'm doing is, instead of going to the second major section, typically these modulate from minor to major. You know. But I'm leaving it in the minor section, and then I'm playing. What I like to do with this is move it to Spain a little bit, and there's a famous progression called the Andalucian Progression, and it's this sound, and that's literally called the Andalusian cadence, or Andalusian cadence, right? So I found it was a nice fit over this tarantella. So I'm going to be playing the tarantella, and not trying to be authentic with it in any way, and then bringing in my jazz and some of the Latin stuff and the Spanish stuff that I do on top of it. So this is the famous, everyone I think will recognize this, the Tarantella Neapolitano.
Mm.
Okay.
Bravo. Bravo. You know, I was thinking as you're, you know, during this performance, you know, as you're talking about, you know, rearranging and kind of, you know, the how the cultural influences, what you've been exposed to in your life has really impacted your music. And, you know, I was thinking it's kind of like in many respects, like the musical continuum, right? But the world musical continuum, you know, music is seldom created in a vacuum, right? I mean, historically, many forms of music were born as a result of, you know, these, whether it was trade or other forms of human contact. And we think of certain styles of music like cumbia, you know, being specifically from Colombia, yet it was really this amalgamation of like African, indigenous, European traditions. I mean, even a lot of the instruments that we, you know, that musicians use can be traced to a specific place and a specific time. And you know, I just thought it was neat. I'm sorry for the kind of the diatribe here, but I just think it's kind of neat. We're kind of watching, like, you know, that music in the making, the music, the continuum, right? So anyway, I just am very much enjoying the moment. And if this was a live concert, I think most of the audience would be saying encore, encore. So I think you had we're planning on wrapping after this song, but do you maybe have time for one more for us?
Yeah, did you want to do were there any questions? Did you want to do those
Well,
before?
we'll do the questions after the encore. Is that okay?
Okay, sure, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Another one I learned recently, and everyone will recognize it. I'm not going to give away the song title. You'll
Okay.
know it in a few seconds. But Nino Rota was a
Mm.
very famous Italian film composer, did a lot of the Fellini films, but also did these that you'll notice in a second. So this is, you'll see.
Beautiful, beautiful. So tell us a little bit about that song.
Yeah, just the theme from The Godfather, and some of these they're also beautiful, but this one I didn't really feel like it needed much apart from me just adding a little bit of jazz and improvisation to it. It's so beautiful and iconic as they all are, but this one I didn't really feel like I needed to change very much. So I just kind of let it speak for itself because it's such a strong, beautiful melody, and that's one thing I would say in the Italian music I've checked out. If the harmony isn't quite as complex as some of the folkloric music from other cultures, the melodies are incredibly strong and beautiful. That's the strength of our Italian heritage. Yeah.
I think many Italian Americans would cite that the Godfather theme and Va Pensiero as like the what they identify as the Italian national anthems.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay, so that again is so lovely. Just really just a bright spot of my week. And many people have asked if this concert is going to be accessible after its premiere today. And the answer is yes. It will be on both our Facebook page and our YouTube page, and we'll be sharing that link shortly. But let's take a few questions if that's okay with you.
Totally.
So our dear friend who is tuning in from Boston, Tommy Damagella, has asked if the mandolin, the Italian mandolin, played a role at all in your life, if it influenced any of your guitar work or you as a musician, were you ever kind of a mandolin enthusiast?
Yeah, yeah. No. Honestly, it's odd, but some guitarists do double on mandolin, but also some violin players because it's tuned in fifths rather than tuned in fourths with the guitar. But but no, and part of it, I mean, I think it's a beautiful instrument for sure. And like I said, Joe Labarbera, who I should have invited to this, but I have his book on Tarantella. He's a mandolin player who went deep into this. But no, I haven't, and it is. I already feel, just from my own personal reasoning, being into all these other genres, I already feel I've been fighting this battle my entire life of trying not to be a jack of all trades, master of none.
Mm-hmm.
And I already feel like playing electric guitar and playing classical guitar and all these, I already feel super spread thin. And that's the reason why I would not pick up the
Mm-hmm.
other than fun. But as far as listening, if he has anything to send my way, have him please put it in the chat. I would love to check it out.
Absolutely.
I have listened to, going back and looking at some of the original, a lot of these CDs references I found were on mandolin.
And I think he might also, some of the times when these questions are posed, they can be interpreted in so many different ways. I'm wondering if he might also mean, were growing up, were you kind of exposed to some of the Italian mandolin music, and did that ever kind of spark a sense of curiosity or?
Yeah, not as much. The opera stuff, there was one summer here at Cal Arts. I wasn't growing up, although, I was 20, but I lived with my aunt and uncle, the one that we saw, my aunt that we saw in the photo from Lincoln Heights. And she's a huge opera fan, as were my family in New York. I heard both sides of the family, they would go in and see operas. And so when I lived with them for a while in between my years at Cal Arts, I watched a lot of opera with her. And I'd say that was a bigger influence on me than the mandolin music. But, of course, we've all, heard That's Amore or something at and with a little bit of mandolin, or O Sole Mio. But no, honestly, I can't say it was. There's something I should check out. Send it to me.
Okay. So that kind of leads into the next question. Who were your chief musical influences, or who are your chief musical influences?
But yeah, growing up, I was more of a rock person. I was really into, hard rock and metal and stuff. And in high school, I had longer hair and I was
We
hardcore.
all did.
But there was always, you'd look in the corner, you could see all the guys that the music people, particularly not the band people, but the players, and we all had long hair. I was constantly checking in the mirror to see how long my hair was and things like that. But so in high school, more hard metal, and then in hard rock and metal, and then moving out here. When I got to Cal Arts, that's when I first started to hear the Brazilian music and the blues music and the Indian music, and going deeper into African music and going deeper into flamenco and into Spanish styles. And, I taught at Plaza de la Raza right there in Lincoln Heights for 5 years. And I love mariachi. I love some of the song styles from Veracruz. And so, but for me, it really depends on the genre because I have so many different genres that I'm into. And, like in jazz guitar, like I mentioned, Joe Pass, Pat Metheny, people
Mhm.
like that. And then, Brazil, there's so many great guitars. So
Mm. And
it's
in some ways, music is like food. It's like one of the first things that you can appreciate about another culture without even knowing the language, right? I mean, there's just,
yeah,
it's amazing the ability of music to convey certain emotions without even, understanding necessarily what is being said.
totally.
And yeah, just one of the reasons, I'm so drawn to it, like you, kind of growing up in Los Angeles, you didn't always have this Italians weren't necessarily the focal point, and there were so many other cultural influences. I remember, growing up with my girlfriend who was half Ecuadorian, half Mexican, and listening to all the great, Latin music at her house, and
Yeah, yeah.
that's one of the, I think, something that Los Angeles really has going for it now.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
and a lot of the nation's other big cities that have always been kind of that cross section of so many different cultures and
yeah,
people,
yeah.
you know.
Absolutely. So yeah, I can't give up one person above all, but within certain genres, I have my favorites. But it's just I feel it's a kind of a curse and a blessing in that I have so many interests. So.
Absolutely, absolutely. It makes you all the more, richer of a musician. So we have lots of questions here. One viewer says that when you played Santa Lucia and some of the Neapolitan songs, it took her back to being in Italy. And of course, many of us are longing to travel, longing to return to Italy right now. So she's asking when you play those Neapolitan songs, what are you picturing in your head? She says that it takes her back to being in Italy.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I don't know if I am picturing, when you're in the moment as a performer, I just kind of try to get lost in the music. And but and when I was crafting those arrangements, yeah, I just kind of follow my muse, but I can't say I really think of anything. I wish I had a tether. I don't have that. That's what's been interesting to me about this project is I didn't grow up with a lot of these songs. I mean, I heard Ole Mio and other things like that, but it was when I decided I wanted to do this to try to connect and find a community here in Los Angeles or create my own inner connection to Italy through my music. I was kind of checking some of these out for the first time that people know. So yeah, I wish I had some really cool answer, but I don't. I don't often think about. One thing I am going to do an arrangement of Finiculi Finicula, right? And I do have a memory of that when I do write that, I may think of because I actually took the funicular in Naples with my sang it to me in Neapolitan as we were going up. So that will be cool. But otherwise, I don't have a lot of association with these as far as something that I visualize.
Okay, and now, of course, because this is an Italian American audience,
For sure.
and we're still very, we still have that campanalismo, that regionalism is still a big part of our culture. We've received lots of questions asking where in Italy your family's from.
Okay, yeah. This is kind of cool because I actually went from Palermo primarily, although my grandmother had the last name Russo, which I found was more like from Campania. But
Mhm.
from Palermo, from a specific area that I went over there on kind of a quest, with I printed out my great grandfather's baptismal certificate, and I met my friend who's from Messina, and we spent a few nights in Palermo, and I actually found the church he was baptized in, and so it's a very specific area called Altarella di Baida, and
Mm,
there's a ton of LoPiccolos there, and
mm,
I really would love to. I haven't done one of those genealogy kits yet, but I
mhm.
heard that you can, if you want, you can make your information public. I would love to connect with some family there if we had any more. But yeah, it's from Palermo and it's from a area called Alto da Baita, which is still Palermo, but maybe like a 15-minute taxi ride from the Duomo in that area there. So also I'm in southern in height. I'm southern in stature, which
You and me both. We were made to work in the fields.
means like the little.
Of course. Well, yeah. Um, Now, another question, our last two questions. You've been asked to kind of explain why you think some of these songs that are now, centuries old are still so popular.
Yeah, God, I don't know. That might be a question for a sociologist too, as well. Whether like that woman that mentioned that it takes her back or it's comforting. Maybe some people, think about that. For me, I did actually, like there was a Pavarotti Christmas VHS, video that I grew up with, and so like, if I listen to that music, it brings me back to just thinking of my family together at Christmas, and I don't know how many times I watched that VHS. It's like a one-hour
Mhm.
Pavarotti Christmas special. Um, but was that I forgot the
That
question.
was a good. So, why do you think that's okay?
Oh, why is it
Why do
popular?
you think these songs remain so popular? I mean, I guess
The melodies are so.
melodies.
I think it's
Mhm.
the melodies because the chords are fairly simple in almost all of these. There's not
Yeah.
very often a beautiful, unexpected chord change. The chord changes in the Neapolitans and even in some of the operas, but the melodies and what they do with that are incredible. I think it's that, and I think also that now Italy it's become this. If you ask anyone that has never traveled outside the country, where would you like to go? Many people always say Italy first. So I think there is this kind of idyllic ideal of Italy, and I think when people go and my mom used to say, who I'm half, my mom's not Italian. She used to say that when she would walk into just an Italian grocery store, that she felt better here in the States, just the smells of like, because she thought she did a DNA test thinking she was Italian. She really loves Italian culture too. And so for her, even just something like that, it has a Pavlovian response. She just feels better. So I think maybe some of the beautiful, everyone goes to, people cry coming back from Italy. They
Yeah.
cry. It's just
It's
because
definitely it's a country that just kind of
so much beauty.
that embraces you.
Yeah, it's so much beauty and so warm. If in those places. Um,
Yeah.
maybe that's why. Yeah.
So then the last question is, aside from this event, where else can people see you perform live?
Yeah, I don't know where everyone's coming from, but for the people in Los Angeles, I've been really blessed during COVID to have a creative outlet and a financial resource. Was I don't know if anyone knows Leo Bulgarini, this kind of um, gelato madman who has this place up in Altadena. I live in Pasadena. So every Friday, Saturday, unless I do something else, I'm playing for it's called Bulgarini Vino Cucina. Now they have pastas and everything. So I've been playing up there. And what I like is I kind of feel with Leo, he is kind of a crazy artisan. And what I'm playing, when I play this stuff, it's not what most people play at a background setting at a hotel or a restaurant, but there I can really play like I'm playing a concert. But
Mhm.
apart from that, when things go back to normal, I'm usually kind of all over. I have to leave for the California club downtown shortly. And I like to play, I would really like to move this project to like some other Italian cultural centers or to, I do perform a little bit in Italy, but these songs it's not as cool to play for a true Italian audience because some of these they've just heard so many
Yeah,
times.
it's almost a cliche. It's kind
Yeah,
of
even younger
no, I
people.
get it. It's like there's that fine line between, really embracing this incredible musical patrimony. And then also there's just like, it seems that every time something Italian pops up, it's like that same like, pizza and mandolin type, which really essentializes the culture and our music, of course. But I
Yeah,
think a lot of cultures encounter that in the media, no?
totally. And
Yeah.
and we don't even like we don't I'm not this isn't exactly analogous, but I had a friend, an Italian woman that I met here when she was doing an internship at the Italian America at the Instituto. And she knew I was into all this stuff. So she sent me these clips. She's like, "Oh, Joe, I went and I found traditional American," and she sent me like links to like Yankee Doodle Dandy, thinking that stuff like that. And I'm like,
Yeah, no, that's a very point taken, right? Point taken. Well, Joe, thanks a million. We're going to let you get to your other gig, but this has been such a great evening. And again, if you'd like to see this concert in its entirety or watch it again, it will be available on the IAMLA's Facebook page, our website, as well as our YouTube page, and we'll be sharing that link shortly. Again, thanks to the Los Angeles Department of Arts and Culture for supporting this event. Joe, you are a treasure. It's always a pleasure working with you, and we look forward to seeing you all again soon. Have a great evening, everyone.
you. I just want to say anyone can write me at joe@joelopiccolo.com and not just to say hi, but if someone has a song that they know of that I don't know, I would love to that person knows about mandolin. So anyway, thank you for having me. Thank you, Francesca. Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you to my aunt that helped out with some photos and
Awesome.
thank you for
Thanks
doing
a
it.
million. Have a great night. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.